Hello, and welcome to the Miles on Repeat podcast. Today we have Saul Bracciulis with us today. How are you doing today, Saul?
Good, good.
Good. So I kind of became aware of your story through Facebook, really. I was seeing like things like you pulling tires and doing like self-supported 100 milers, and I was just really interested in learning your background. So first I'll just ask like where you're from and what you do.
Yeah, so originally I'm from Lithuania, but that's my nationality. But most of my life I lived in Washington State from maybe 2004. And yeah, I just really enjoyed nature. My parents took me hiking, or not just me. I have three siblings, and we'd all be taken out as hikes as like a family tradition. We used to hate it, or some of us maybe hated it more than others, and then I really started to enjoy it because yeah, it was just getting to explore nature. Um, at some point, I got into skiing. We got season passes. We skied a lot, and then some years later, my parents moved, and they couldn't afford to buy a season pass. So one day, that was back in 2015, one day my dad asked me, "Hey, you want to try doing the loop around St. Helens, which is about 30 miles, Lewitt Trail?" And I never done anything above 18 miles. And I was just freaking out. Like, how am I going to pack enough food? I'm probably going to die. Like, man, I couldn't sleep the night before. I was so nervous. But we packed enough. We I Yeah, we packed just barely enough food, I guess. And we didn't really research where the water sources were. We kind of just ended up winging it. But it would have been a good idea to look up creeks and where the last water was, because at least I was so dehydrated, and I was trying to collect water droplets, or for dew droplets from the leaves, and that is not really helpful. um, so yeah, that from that hike, I think maybe it was that specific hike. I also saw some trail runners, and I thought, man, how do they do that? Like, with such tiny packs, how are they not dying? And then I looked it up. Turns out it was the Bigfoot race. I looked it up online, and turns out there's even 200-mile races. I didn't really believe it. I didn't really process it. I think that was just like made up or something. Like, it. I don't know. For a couple of years, well, at first I was thinking like, oh, that'd be so cool to be able to run around the mountain like that. But I thought, man, but that's so much elevation. Like, there's no way I could run all with so much elevation. At first, I probably should probably start with flatter runs for that distance, and but at the same time, I was thinking, who in the world would want to do that? That sounds so boring. Especially when I had access to trails. Like, my dad would take me to trails, and it was fine. Like, I was pretty happy. I didn't really need to. I wasn't really that curious at actually trying to push myself in terms of running. I just go on these long distance walks with my dad, which ended up being like 30 miles on average. We just enjoyed trying to set different records, like, oh, maybe um, we reached a new destination that we haven't been, or uh, I don't know if I was really looking at the time we completed, like 30 miles. It wasn't always like necessarily 30 miles, sometimes 25 or maybe 20 mile or something like that. And sometimes we wouldn't even drive, we would just start walking from home. Like, one time I remember we did like a 20 miler speed walk. It was like really fast speed walking, like 4 mile an hour speed walking, which sounds ridiculous now that I think about it. But at the end of it, I decided to go to a movie theater and my dad apparently walked back, which was just mind blowing to me because I didn't think like he could do that distance. Like I was just shocked, but I kind of forgot about that at the same time because I was watching my movie in a theater. So, and I think he might have been picked up later, but I don't remember the exact details. Um, but then later on, we did end up walking like 30 and 40 miler, and we ended up doing a 56 miler in 26 hours around by St. Helens. Um, but it was like very last minute. Like we thought we'd do a 36 miler, and then we didn't want to cross a river, so we thought, okay, maybe we could go up the mountain and part of Lewitt Trail, but there's snow. We don't know if there's going to be post holing. Well, we took a gamble, and yeah, there was a lot of post holing. We suffered a lot, but it was pretty interesting. It was pretty fun and exciting, and the post holing wasn't like for too long that we like completely froze our feet off, but it was still fun. And but yeah, initially we thought we'll do like a 36 miler, and then it became a 56 miler with like 15 minutes of napping in the car to begin with because we started like at midnight. Yeah, so we done a bunch of like random last minute like 20-hour hikes for the weekend. But yeah, that seeing those trail runners kind of put a seed in my head, but there was no big motivation. And then at some point, I bought a car. It was a 2003 Ford Escape. Paid like 1,800 for it, and then it lasted for like a year and a half, about. And I paid like 5,000 in repairs, and it still kept breaking. I got really frustrated with the whole process. Um, and yeah, my dad told me just get rid of it. It's just draining all your money. So I thought, okay, fine, that's probably a smart decision. And they told me, oh, you should just bike to work because at that point I was still close to work. Instead, I was still taking a lift forward and bus back. And that was in Snohomish, working for a tree trimming company. Um, and but I didn't bike yet. Um, uh, let's see where I'm at. Yeah, so I I was used to going on hikes. That was like what I was looking forward to every weekend. But suddenly my car breaks and I'm not able. Well, let me backtrack a little bit. When I did have my car, when I did have a car, I'd just go by myself. I wouldn't really need anyone to take me. And then when my car broke, I was looking for people to take me to hikes, but it was pretty challenging to do that, especially for like longer distance hikes that were like 20 or 30 miles. And now looking back, I realize I feel like I'd find more trail runners that run that distance rather than hike it. So that's even another level that I just kind of thought about. But yeah, there's like most people might hike like 10 miles or 5 to 10, at least in the groups that I was. And I was like, no, I want to spend the whole day hiking. I don't want to spend like 5 hours hiking and go to a restaurant and spend so much money on the restaurant. Then um, it's just I didn't think it was worth my time and money. Uh, so one time I decided to go grocery shopping. I thought I would go grocery shopping. It was either a Sunday or Saturday, and I thought, you know what? I have plenty of time. Why don't I just? Well, initially I was thinking I'll just walk like 6 miles, and then I thought, you know what? I have some more time. Why don't I just try running the distance I typically hike with my dad? And I rounded it down to a marathon to 26 miles instead of a whole 30 miles because I thought, oh, that's like a standard uh, number or mileage. So I thought, okay, fine, let's try a marathon. Let's see what I could do because there was no good reason for me to do it, but now I was just bored and I thought, yeah, why the heck not? Let me try it. And so I packed. I had this military pack. I put some snacks and drinks in it, um, and I was kind of taking my time. I wasn't very pushing for any specific time. I just wanted to see how long it would take. I was eating blackberries from bushes and making plans what I'd do after. And that one took me about 5 hours. And then I went to a pizza place. Um, or yeah, I guess I had to look up what as I was like running slash walking. And then I went to a movie theater. Uh, they let me bring the pizza in, which was like shocking. uh, yeah, I gave some to some other people because I had extra, and yeah, it was a blast. I had no idea like it could be so much fun to do that. Like nobody told me to do it. I didn't really have any friends that ran or that I knew of, and I was just kind of curious about it, and it was the best thing I could have thought of. Like I had no idea it could have been this much fun. That I didn't need to have a car, and um, it didn't cost me that much. Um, and then and then I thought, you know what? I'll try the same thing next weekend. So I tried it, and then got in instead of 5 hours, which was my first marathon time. Instead of 5 hours, I got 4:30, and then third marathon or third consecutive weekend, I tried a marathon, and I was so injured. I had to walk back. I ran like 3 miles. I thought it was going to be a nice sunrise marathon. I thought it was going to be epic. I had it planned out. I woke up sometime early, like I don't know if it was midnight, maybe between midnight and 5 a.m. or something. I don't know. I woke up. I thought I could do the whole thing, but after 3 miles, I was like, man, something's really messed up with my knee. And I thought, man, this is so disappointing. I just discovered I love something, and I completely ruined my chances. Like, I'll never be able to run anymore. Such a disappointment. Like, why did I have to do this to myself? Um, and then somehow a month passed without me running, which was like so much easier to do back then. No, I wouldn't be able to do that. But yeah, it took a month off, and luckily I got invited to a few hikes. I tried a 20 miler, and it was as if I was never injured. So I was like, oh, interesting. Like, I guess I'm not that screwed after all. Maybe I'm not that doomed. Maybe it's not so bad. Um, and then I went into these really bad cycles of being way too obsessed about just like the mileage, and um, like I got introduced by this friend Justin Blanchard, who introduced me to the idea of run the year, which basically means you run 2,000 miles in a year. I was very inconsistent throughout the week, so that meant I would have to do like maybe slightly under or about a 50 miler on the weekends. So I ended up just doing my whole week of miles in one day or a few days. And so it was like a very aggressive start to it. But no, actually I actually ramped up my mileage from like a marathon to I think it was 36 miles. And then I was planning to do a 42 miler. I was basically planning from the beginning when the buses could get me to a start of a trail to the last one. And I guess I realized, oh, I could just like run through the night or something like that. I could just catch the morning one. So I decided I'll just do the whole trail in and back, which that was the Centennial Trail. So one way is like about 31 miles. So I did the 62 miler. And that was right after I met his friend, Justin Blanchard. He was the first person basically that really got me thinking that, oh, maybe there's a chance I could push for longer distances, because uh, he's talking about like times that he was training for Burning River, and I was just so inspired that, oh man, I'm meeting someone that ran 100 miler, and I was like, damn, that's crazy. And I thought, man, it's gonna take me years before I can run my first 100 miler. Like, but just looking at his comments about or reflecting about what he said about the trail, because we ran in Ward Hill, and the fact that it was like he was saying it was too technical or more technical than normal, I thought, it didn't seem too bad to me. And so, like the next weekend after meeting him, that's when I ran my first 62 miler. And um, some months later in March, uh, basically 7 months after my marathon, I attempted my first 100 miler. Uh, yeah, with the same military pack, and I didn't know, I still didn't know what I was doing. I didn't have like a running vest. I just had a military pack, and I loaded it as if I was going on like a long day walk with like a thermos. I think I might have had some fruit, probably sandwiches, and it was heavy. It was like 25 pounds, I think. It was ridiculous. And I thought, oh no, there's no way I'm allowed to refill or restock for food. That's cheating. For some reason, there was, it, I think, I think even when I achieved my 62 miler, I guess I got into my head that, I could probably train for the PCT like this, but there's no way I should be stopping at stores, because then that means like I'm failing somewhere. It means I'm giving in to my urges that, like, oh, I should just be eating what I'm bringing, even if it's a bit disgusting. But um, yeah, it turned yeah, basically didn't do any water refills for the first 50 miles because I had enough liquids. And then later on, looking back, I realized, oh, not people typically don't do that. Like, I was like, oh, that's interesting. Like, because I had like nothing, I didn't do any research. I didn't really talk to other people or take in any information or have any like trail running friends. I mean, I probably did have trail running friends, but I just didn't really question how they did things or, um, yeah. So, and I think I might have not had that many funds as well. So, like, I didn't have a watch back then. Even as I ran my first 100 miler, I just recorded through uh, this app called View Ranger. So I just had the GPX and imported to Strava like way later when I got Strava eventually. Um, but yeah, it was pretty interesting because yeah, like I said, I didn't know what I was doing, but backing track or going back for like additional for motivations, um, I'd have to say there were at least there's definitely a few factors that contributed to that. So one thing is I didn't have a car, so I was looking for activity that I could be independent and not have to look for people. Um, Second of all, I was at a stressful job environment working as a tree trimmer. Um, I didn't like how my foreman was treating me, and at some point, I was because I didn't have a car. I also was just before I started running, I was kind of out of solutions and just playing video games, arcade games, and I was noticing, man, I could play these games for way longer than I thought I have the capacity. Like, I don't know, I might be exaggerating, but I thought I was like, man, I'm on my phone for like 10 hours. Like, why? This is ridiculous. Like, what happened to me? I used to enjoy the outdoors, and now I'm just like a couch potato, and I I didn't like that. So I realized I needed to make a big try something new. So that was another motivator. So yeah, that's kind of what. Oh yeah, in addition, um, I realized my weekends were so depressing that I was looking forward to my toxic work environment, and that was bad as well because it's like I realized, man, that was never the case. That I would look to my work week more than my weekend. I realized it should be the opposite, probably. So yeah, that's another motivator. So yeah, I just started increasing the distance, increasing because that was like the one stable thing in my life, and also so at the time, at first I was living in Snohomish, and then I moved to. My friend helped me move to Seattle because I figured there was a bigger outdoors community. Um, and yeah, that the landlord in Snohomish was very unreliable, and one 1 or 2 weeks before moving out from Snohomish, I figured, you know what? I'll never be in such a convenient place to this cool trail, to this Centennial Trail. I might as well do my first 100 miler before I move out. So that was kind of another uh, thing that triggered me to attempt my 100 miler, and I ended up visiting the trailhead to the first mountain or first trail, I guess, that yeah, I'd say first mountain that I climbed when I moved to the general Seattle slash Snohomish area. I know I'm putting them together, but like when I moved to Snohomish, I climbed Whitehorse Mountain, and I don't know if you heard about it, but yeah, I just decided to visit the trailhead on my run as like a commemorative run, and then I went to Darrington, and then I went back to downtown Snohomish. So yeah, that was a very scenic run. Definitely recommend it for even other people that are starting out because it's fairly flat and there's a lot of good scenery, and there's still some stores on the way. Um, yeah. Anything you want to ask?
How long was it from when you did that hike around Mount St. Helens to when you ran that first marathon?
Oh, so the 30 miles Lewitt Trail around St. Helens, that was back in somewhere about 2015, I believe. I'd have to double check. And then either 2012, I don't think it was 2012. I think it was like 2015 that I did the 30-mile hike with my dad, the first of that distance. And then in 2019, that was when I attempted my first flat and intentionally pushed myself on that marathon that I did. Yeah. So about 4 years, I guess. Yeah.
Okay. And the marathon was your like first ever run? You never ran anything lower than that
Oh,
before?
I have ran before. Yeah, but they were just like very there were not much of a time goal. It was more just like oh, I want to reach this place. Um, like probably starting from my home, like back when I lived in Snohomish. I mean, not Snohomish, in La Center. Yeah. And then I think I've done some shorter races, but it might have been just one. I don't know. Oh well, if you're tracing back way back from like middle school, I think it was in middle school. I did do the mile in track, but I didn't like it, and I wasn't really the fastest person there, and I kind of hated it actually. So yeah, I didn't understand it. I was so exhausted, and like my head was just blowing up with too being too hot. Yeah.
So you've done a like, how many self-supported 100 milers have you done now?
I don't actually track in categories like, I mean, I think I do list it on my descriptions, but I'm not keeping a separate count of supported versus unsupported. Um, but let's say if you're saying non-race,
Yeah, yeah.
non-race format, then I would say most of Yeah, because I think last year was my first race 100 miler that I did. So that would mean I've done, um, I believe I've done 24 so far, just non-race 100 milers. Yeah,
Wow, that's pretty incredible. Do you like
thanks.
do the same routes or do you come up with different routes all the time?
I am starting to repeat the routes because at first I'm new to the area, so I'm making new routes. The ones that I've repeated are mostly road 100 milers. I haven't ran too many trail 100 milers, which of course is probably the terrifying part for the future project coming out for the PCT because it has so much vert. Um, but yeah, I am starting to repeat some of the 100 milers for sure. And once in a while, I will. It does make it more interesting if I could create new routes. I do try to create new routes or add a little, at least some kind of extra variation if I'm motivated enough. Because yeah, otherwise it gets kind of boring to do the same exact things. And if I am doing the same exact things, I might be, let's say, focusing on like getting a better time or something like that. Um, but if it's like a new location, then I'm probably not super or as concerned about the time because I might be just because there's more unknowns, and I might be doing that more for like exploration. Like for example, I've done one run where I ran from my house in Seattle to Mount Pilchuck and back, and I did like I don't know when I was at Mount Pilchuck. I don't know what I might have done like a 30-mile trail part. It might have been a bit shorter. There was some bushwhacking involved, but yeah, and then I ran back. Well, also I camped in the hut there. Yeah, so it's like there was some moving or things that I decided on the way there. Like I didn't realize I was gonna camp until like some people were saying that oh I could just camp overnight and I decided, that sounds like a better idea than try and go through the night continuously. And it's like a shelter, so like might as well. But I didn't think of that initially, and then the plan kind of evolved. So yeah.
What kind of goes into the planning of those, supported or self-supported 100 milers?
Uh, let's see. I guess if it's like a destination that I think is cool to visit, um, then and I think I could reach it within about 50 miles. That's kind of how I make the plans. Even if it's like maybe a little bit more, I guess I could do that, but kind of it kind of ends up being a time constraint. So I have to see um, like what would be the worst case scenario or the slowest case scenario if I'm the slowest. Although I don't really do that well of a job, I keep miscalculating. I go oftentimes I might go a lot slower than, than I initially calculate. So yeah, I need to keep working on that to give myself enough time and know where my limits are so I don't run into the other day and I have enough time to sleep to get ready for work and stuff like that. Because yeah, of course I can like take the day off uh, from work, but I'm trying to be a little bit smarter so I'm not using up my days and getting paid. Yeah.
You mentioned
So
something about PCT. So, when are you planning on taking on the PCT, or what's your kind of plan
uh,
there?
for for now, I'm gonna try a first attempt at about July 12th, and then I might try a couple attempts in summer, but I'm thinking if there's like fires right away at that time. Well, I think even before that, I might try like some. like one of the snowiest sections, because I'm thinking of starting north and going south. I might try some kind of north section that has a bunch of snow, for example, and if it's runnable enough, if it's not too much ridiculous post holing, then I'll go on with the plan of starting July 12th, as long as there's no fires. But if there's fires, um, I guess I might delay all the way to like October, something like that, where hopefully all the fires been um, have gone. But I don't know. I guess it's a gamble either way, just for different reasons. But I am trying to do it continuously. Like I know I could do separate sections, or I'm pretty sure I could do separate sections and just like wait. But I think I'm more curious to do it all in one go, or as much as I can. So I think I'm just gonna um, just not do it if there's some kind of obstacle. I'll just have to restart it sometime later, but I'll just keep training for that. Yeah.
What's the reasoning behind like going southbound?
Um, I don't know. I guess my parents live there in Vancouver, Washington, so I figured it'd be nice to just see them at the end. Yeah. There's not too much reason, but I mean, of course, there's also like um I think transportation is more trickier to in the South. I think it's more remote there, and just kind of generally, vaguely. Um, and if I just start on like the most remote part and then come down south, I could. There might be more people that could rescue me if I wanted help getting back. Um, yeah, I guess that might be some parts that I was thinking about,
Yeah,
but uh,
yeah, definitely. Do you have a time goal in mind, or is it just kind of like seeing how it goes?
uh, I'm aiming for 8 to 12 days, so 60 or 42 to 60 mile days, somewhere there.
Yeah. Are you planning on doing like continuous 100 milers to build up for that, or like what's your training looking like?
I'm trying to do about like 30 mile days, uh, like work days, maybe even more. I thought I could do like 50 mile days, but we'll see. That might be too much. Um, so I'm just saying like what's the maximum I could do for work days, and I have been struggling on the weekends to motivate myself to do longer runs. Um, I mean, of course, if someone invited me, I'd probably join them, but I'm usually by myself. So, um, and plus, I also like doing other activities. So I might be. Sometimes my friends invite me to ski trips, or later on, maybe it might be rock climbing. So if I get like a high mileage week, just running Mondays through Fridays, I figured I could kind of mix it up on the weekends potentially. Yeah, so I might end up getting like 150 to 200 mile weeks. Even though I'm definitely under. Recently, I've been I've been like getting 100 mile weeks, which is kind of low for me. But I don't know.
Do you know how strange
I've been
that sounds
slacking.
to hear somebody say like, "Oh, 100 miles is a really low week for me."
Yeah, yeah, because I'm basing it on the fact that I'm the highest mileage week I will, if I ever want to reach 60 mile uh, days for the PCT, it means I'll have to do a freaking 420, which I've never done that before, not even on flat. So it's like I gotta kind of push myself towards that. Otherwise, it'll be impossible. Like I won't know what's that like. And of course, I'm not carrying a pack Like before, I used to just do all my runs with my heavy work pack, and I realized I was just like breaking my back too much. It was like just damaging my back, and I'm probably not getting that much training anyways. Like there was definitely benefits in training, but figured out I'll just start trying to do more strength workouts and run to work with the pack, and then if I have downtime, I'll run without a pack at a faster pace. Because I think my bigger one of my interests is also like getting my 100-mile time down as fast as I could on a like no elevation run. Because I'm definitely inspired by the runner Sorokin. I don't know if you heard about him. He's
Mhm.
like the world record holder. Um, so I figured, man, if I could get to some fraction of that, that'd be insane. But I'll still do trail runs. I mean, I just it takes a while to get to the trails, and um, there's like no stores on the trails, so it's a bit different. So yeah, but
100-mile time right now?
20, I think it's 20 and a half or something like that, 20 and a half hours. Yeah.
Was that
That was not a race format. That was just my own. Yeah.
so typically like it doesn't seem like you race very much, right?
No, I do maybe like 4 times a year, but yeah, that's
Is
probably about it.
Do you just would you rather just do the training on your own or
I mean, I prefer if I I'd like to go on like adventure runs with other people, but it's just such it, either like a niche thing, or like maybe it's like um just so unusual for people to do that they don't want to dedicate that much time to do it. I don't know like what's the deal, but like I mean 30 miles would be pretty okay too, like as a trail run, but I guess that's kind of rare. And also I'm really bad at like reaching out, so it's not just like that people don't do it, but I just it's hard to like navigate all that. Yeah.
I feel like it's harder here too. I'm from South Dakota and I feel like it's harder to connect with the trail runners and like the well, I'm in Tacoma, but even here
Yeah,
I feel like it's much harder to connect with people and like do those long
right.
distance things.
I feel right. I feel like I'm not super familiar, but I feel like in terms of popularity, like community size, I feel like Seattle might be the largest one. Like in terms of like the northern parts of Washington, I think Seattle is the largest one. Then maybe Olympia, and I'm betting Tacoma is even smaller than the Olympia community. So yeah, it's unfortunate
It really is
where you're
unfortunate,
living.
but what do you do? So beyond the PCT plan, I see like you doing things like carrying like tires behind you and ice blocks. Like what's the reasoning for that?
Oh yeah. I mean, I haven't done them for too long. I don't. That was just like part of my journey to see if I could heal my foot, or one of the reasons at least. Um, I think on ultra running, I saw this guy that made the world record of dragging, of doing a 100-mile race, but in addition, dragging a tire. And I guess he registered as the world record longest tire drag. And I was like, man, that's crazy. Like that's insane. Like I want to try that too. So figured like maybe I could do it as my run to a trail and back or something. And luckily, at the time that I suggested to do that to my friend Chelsea, she was totally okay with crewing me, and she was so nice to be there for 3 days. I didn't really think it would take that long, but basically, I ended up dragging a tire from Seattle to this mountain called Mount Si, and carrying up a mountain, and there's like this little rock thing called haystack, but it was all covered in snow, and it was like 4 a.m. So like nobody there, and I had to like create steps for the tire to not slide down. Or yeah, I don't know if I had an ice axe. I might have just had poles. Hopefully I had an ice axe, but I don't remember. But it was like just like creating, yeah, platform so I could hold on to the slope, and then also so I could temporarily put the tire down without it sliding down. Like I created little shelves, and I was still wearing the harness, even though it was completely, like most of the time it was unnecessary. I was just like, oh, I need to do this, so like I have all my gear basically. I still, just to be silly or something, I don't know. Still had my harness. I did drag it a little bit on the trail, like on the snow, but later on, because there was like, it was too rough to drag it, I ended up carrying it up. But carrying it was like a fairly relatively short distance over the whole distance. Like it's probably like maybe 10 miles total was carried, maybe a bit less, I don't know. But total distance was a 104-mile uh, tire drag and carry. So, and that took me 3 days. So,
Oh my
um,
gosh.
yeah, I didn't really train for that. I did do like the longest tire drag before that was a 50-mile tire drag, and at the same time, it was also kind of intersecting with me trying barefoot running, because I figured, oh, that might help with my feet. And that was super fascinating. And I wish I could continue it, but I decided maybe it's not the most ideal, because I was getting certain pains under the ball of my foot, or on certain joints, I guess. Or one specific joint. And so those two concepts I ended up combining, and ended up doing like a 38-mile tire drag, or barefoot tire drag with, and then the last miles to get a 50-miler, I put on these thin water shoes. So yeah, it ended up being like this 50-mile barefoot tire drag.
That's wild. Did you say, like, at the end of the 104-mile thing that you were carrying the tire up Mount Si, like at the end?
Oh no, it wasn't. No, it wasn't at the end. It was in the
Okay.
middle. So I drag it
Okay.
from my house in Seattle. I drag it through sidewalks, and then I think most of it was sidewalks and like roads. Well, yeah, there were a bit roads, but mostly sidewalks. There's a little bit of gravel paths, and then when there were trails, I didn't really drag it too much on the trails to not ruin the trails too much. I ended up carrying it. And yeah, then I'm carrying it up to the top of Mount Side and Haystack, and then taking it down and dragging it back. So the most
Okay.
elevation was in the middle. I'm going up the mountain and then dragging it back.
Okay, that makes sense. I would say
Yeah.
that would be brutal because I mean I've done Mount Si
Oh yeah,
and
for
like
sure.
having that
Yeah.
at the end, but I think I saw you do like 100-miler where you ended at Mailbox. Is that, am I crazy for saying
Oh
that?
yeah. You're right. That was like I guess a DNF of a 150-mile loop. I just realized I needed to do some chores, so I cut that run short. I was trying to do an unsupported 150 miler to see if I could carry all my snacks, and it wasn't. I was under fueling. Like I carried different camping gear, a mat, and it was comfortable, but I think I'd rather have carry more food than use that space for an inflatable mat. Well, space and weight, instead of inflatable mat and hot food. I probably could have just stored more real foods, which I need to keep experimenting and pushing towards that, because yeah, I was definitely like close to running on fumes. Like I wasn't like super dead, but and because I didn't stop at any stores for any real food, but like if I had to finish the last 50 miles of, or run an additional 50 miles after I got to Mailbox, I wouldn't be too happy. So, at the minimum. The worst, it could have been way worse. I don't know. I mean, I didn't continue it, but yeah.
Yeah. Have you done longer than 100 milers before on like by yourself?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, yeah, like the longest one, um, longest distance that was like day after day was a 263 miler. Oh, well, that was with a lot of support. I guess the longest uh, s- I- self-supported or unsupported was from Seattle to Portland to Vancouver, which was a 222 miler. I think I spent like 3.5 days on that one, and yeah, that was pretty fun. But I did stop at stores, yeah, because the first attempt I did like maybe a few years before that successful one. I tried to carry all my food and I was unsuccessful, and the pack was way too bulky, and yeah, um, kind of ridiculous. So I decided, you know what, I'll just pack enough for like first fit first 50 or first 100 miles and then buy extra food on the way. Maybe just take all the gels I'd ever need and get other snacks in grocery stores, gas stations, or restaurants. So that's what I ended up doing, and that ended up being successful. So I was pretty happy about it. Yeah.
When you ran down to Portland and then back up, were you like
Oh,
run
I didn't run back to Seattle. I just ran from Seattle to Portland
and then
and
from
Vancouver.
Vancouver?
Or I mean, I guess I did run a little bit north from Portland, but yeah, but
Okay.
not like all the way to Seattle.
Did
Yeah.
you run like along the highway or how did
It was these parallel roads. Like I think it was the old Highway 99 or something. Like it was the lesser used road. So it wasn't the highway. Um, but there were still cars. There's definitely like a lot of places with not a lot of shoulder. There's definitely many places, and compared to if I'm comparing to how comfortable it is to run, let's say from Seattle south to the southern border of Washington versus the northern, I'd say northern to Canada is a lot more comfortable. There's a lot nicer, um, maybe wider shoulders or less traffic going north to Canada than to Portland, in my opinion, at least. So if anyone's planning to do a road run in those directions, at least for the route that I picked, yeah,
how
yeah.
often are you doing those like really long distance runs?
Um, I guess it varies. I mean, some year I tried three consecutive, like one weekend after another, three consecutive 100 milers from one weekend to another, and then I got pretty injured. Um, but I don't know. Sometimes they're like I might end up doing like four or five a year, um, but I remember back like when I was some years ago, I was just really having bad luck with like my foot and maybe a little bit of nutrition, but it's also a combination of just like having bad weather and not really planning well enough. So my back would get cold or wet, and I just wouldn't be a good idea for me to continue because I would just like my whole energy would be too drained. And I also wasn't getting the time that I would have liked. So I ended up quitting a lot of times. I'd keep saying, "Oh, I'm gonna do another 100 miler," and then I'd keep DNFing, and I'd be so disappointed. But now I'd say my success rate is like way higher. Um, I think now the reason if I end up quitting, it's more likely that I ended up starting like 12 hours later than I thought I would. So that I'm like thinking, I don't think I really want to come in like super tired at work, so I'll just quit early and have this time to sleep instead. And I mean, I know I could finish if I really wanted to, but it's like, why do this? Just next time I should just start earlier, and that's it. And I'm like, I don't really um, worry about it or beat myself over it that it's like, oh, you failed at this. Like sometimes my dad might say that, oh, you should have finished it because now you're just telling yourself that you can't finish it. I'm like, no, I don't really think about it that way. Like, so
So you
yeah.
mentioned like problems with the foot. Have you figured out what's been going on since?
Um, I definitely figured out a few things. I think there's definitely still some issues uh, that I haven't figured out. But one very important thing that I didn't really consider it was important, it was kind of like, it was a bit subtle that it didn't really, I didn't end up thinking about it initially, but it was the side of my foot. I had a bunion, and I, I I ended up quitting my run back from St. Helens. Like I did a run from my parents' home in Vancouver to climb St. Helens, and was gonna run back, but I realized, man, this is the same issue that I had when I was running to Canada, but I didn't quit my run to Canada. I reached it, but it's the same exact issue, and it's like, what's the point? Like, no amount of training is gonna fix this. So, because initially, at some point, I was convinced that, oh, I just need to train more, but later I realized, oh, it's not about how much training I'm gonna get. It's still gonna keep hurting, because after like 60, 70 miles, I noticed my foot would get too inflamed, and I was just suffering too much. And then I decided to go to a doctor to find out what I could do. Mentally, I was totally convinced. I convinced myself, you know what? If I need to do an operation, I'll do it. Like, I was so nervous, and I thought I totally would need to do one. But luckily, he told me that, oh, some shoes they have more volume, and apparently I wasn't wearing the widest shoes that companies make, and I was shocked. Like, what? I didn't wear the best shoes all these years, like for 3 4 years. I was like, whoa, that's crazy. So I tried the extra wides instead of wides, and I don't feel any discomfort. Which, yeah, I was just like, wow. I wish I'd done that like years before, but some things are, if there's any kind of small thing that ends up bothering your foot only after so many miles, as ultra runners, we might convince ourselves, oh, that's normal. That's just like regular fatigue. And so it's kind of hard to distinguish it. But I guess with enough experience, you end up convincing yourself or realizing that, this specific pain, there might be actually something you could do about, because some things are not as easy to fix, but other things they might be. So I just decided to really focus on that specific part, and I realized, oh, I could actually, yeah, the doctor recommended me to first try wider shoes, and that worked. So pretty happy about that. Um, yeah.
So what kind of things work for you nutrition wise now?
That's something I'm still trying to find out. Well, let's see. I guess generally like warm foods are super helpful. Bread, um, I guess pizzas, and like you're talking about on the run,
Yeah, like when you're
or
out
yeah,
running.
uh-huh, yeah. I will typically take like granola bars and gels for like speedy runs, or even on the long runs, at least as a base for like calories. But I know if I just eat that, my stomach might get upset. So before I have got taken with me like slices of pizza, and I'll try to take a little bit of the pizza, and mix it, and then on the other bite take some granola, so the granola bars are more digestible. Um, and let's see. Yeah, sometimes I'll make like soft tacos with leftovers. I haven't taken them in a while, so I might have to experiment again with taking them, because I remember those were good. I might add some rice, stir fry vegetables, and melt cheese inside. Maybe meat if I have any, but I'm not too used to buying meat, so I'm not too much of a expert in that. But yeah, let's see what else. But I'm definitely still gonna be trying different options, like especially if there's something that I could buy pre-made at a store that's real food, and if I could take it with me, I'll definitely be interested in that because then that'll kind of help me save time and just I wouldn't have to think about it much. So yeah, I was about to like take some cold burritos and take it with me on the run and see how my stomach if my stomach is okay with that compared to like granola bars because that might be way better. Like who knows? Like because I'm basically used to eating the Cliff bars, which are probably generally considered like the most disgusting granola bars out of all of them. I don't know. I didn't ask. I didn't see any poll, but I'm just gonna guess. But there's definitely like tastier ones or more universally ones. But I still get them because they're like cheaper and they have a lot of calories. Um, but yeah, I was going to take some cold burritos and do a run, but I haven't done that yet. I skipped the long run last weekend. Or yeah, but hopefully I'll get to try one. Do like a 60 miler or a 100 miler and see if I could how I feel with that kind of nutrition. So, oh yeah, I have started trying Uncrustables where I did like a Carkey Park Loop for 24 hours and I started eating them and I started trying Tailwind and that kind of sustained me. Like I didn't feel like I was extremely exhausted, but I guess if I was going like my max speed, like I don't know, like if I was giving like 105% effort or way more effort than I have been giving, then yeah, I'd definitely bonk on energy. But like the effort that I put in, it was okay. Um, Definitely not the same as like heated food, but yeah, probably better than just granola bars and gels. So I'll probably keep doing that. Uh, yeah, but I'm definitely interested in hearing other people's ideas or anything that you could just like buy and not have to spend time to prepare. Um, I mean, I guess it's a matter of habit, just uh, spending more time in the kitchen. But yeah, I don't like doing that too much.
Yeah, definitely. I always like to ask, is there anybody, you mentioned a few already, but is there anybody who inspires you within our running community that you would think would be a great person to have on our show?
Well, I don't know if you could get Sorokin on here, but that'd be funny.
I
He
wish.
could. I have chatted with him though. Like I have planned to run across diagonally from Vilnius to Kaunas, diagonally across Lithuania, which would be like a 200 miler. I think someday I'll do that. And I asked him, or I don't know if I asked him, but I told him I was going to do that, and then he said, "Yeah, sure. Let me know when you're going to do that." And I was like, "Whoa, that's crazy." Like, but he probably forgot about me by now because I haven't been chatting with him. But yeah, he's definitely interesting or inspirational guy. But out of like, are you talking about like more local people, or does it not matter?
It could be
Either.
anywhere, anybody.
Oh, okay. Oh, I don't know. I mean, I did like I did do the like the longest supported run. I'd done a 300 20 I think it was 326 miler around Puget Sound. And my friend Troy Hessler, he's running with me for the first 75 miles, so he's a good guy to talk to. Like he has a running club. I mean, I haven't joined too many of his, but yeah, sometimes we'll jog together, but I mean, not that often. But he has given me some food at occasional 100 milers. He has picked me up a few times, um, which was nice. Um, let's see. So I know you already interviewed Kendra,
I
but
did, yeah.
Kendra was pretty fun. It was pretty fun to listen to that one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she's definitely interesting. Um, so, could you let our listeners know where to follow your journey so they can see how the PCT unfolds for you and what else you get into this year?
Yeah. Yeah. It's running with Saul, separated by periods. Running dot with dot Saul.
Excellent.
That's for Instagram. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing and coming on. And it was nice to just kind of hear a little bit about your background. I really appreciate you coming on to the show.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Miles on Repeat podcast. Please like, share, and follow wherever you get your podcasts. You can feel free to leave us a review. That helps us out too. Until next time, happy trails, guys.